The scent of magnolia embraces me. Warm breezes flow through my mind, awakening that part of me connected to God. I listen, seeking his touch. He answers, showing such beauty, showing how much he loves me. The sounds of water splash upon the insides of my mind. Quietly, I seek to find the light put forth at the dawn of eternity. Soft shadows and whispers reassure me of his gentle love. Welcome me to this place. There is so much more, so much I do not know, and yet so much more, so very much more. His gift is boundless. He only asks that we love.
License and registration, he can sense your aggravation.
On the head of the fallen angel.
When the world is muttering under the floorboards, stomp even louder.
Time.
Let them know you are alive today.
Or unhum.
Did you know that your hands came with a ripple effect?
Whisper tones unraveling like silk.
Blood, sweat, and tears win by any means poetry.
Sway, look at me. Is a piece of the pie too good for me?
Some may call it rock the mic. We call it poetry.
Hello. Welcome to Sojourn with Words. Always happy to have you with us one more time. I'm Sistah Joy, your host, and today we have a wonderful poet that I know you're going to enjoy. We are speaking today with AaronR. AaronR is a poet, writer, producer, and editor of his own poetry videos. He is the author of the poetry book, Poetically Correct, Volume 1, and the owner of his own poetry brand called, you guessed it, Poetically Correct. He is the inaugural winner of the 2018 World Food Day Poetry Competition and the 2020 Poet in Residence at the Capital Area Food Bank. Now, Aaron he has used poetry to write about numerous issues that he's passionate about, including hunger, social injustices, poverty, homelessness, and mental illness. Originally from Hampton, Virginia, currently he resides in Arlington, Virginia. Aaron produces, directs, and edits his own poem videos. And he does have a website, AaronRpoems.com, but we'll make sure that we provide that on screen before our interview is over, just so that you can be in touch with him further after today. But right now, welcome, Aaron. Welcome to Sojourn with Words.
Thank you, Sistah Joy. It's an honor to be here, a privilege. I'm just so happy that you allowed me to come on here with you. So thank you. My privilege.
I get excited when I meet interesting poets, and you certainly fall into that category. Mm-hmm. One of the things that, aside from your poetry itself, we always like to know a little bit about the poet. And so the first question begs, how did you get involved in writing? Well, in writing poetry, was it generically writing initially, or was it always writing poetry?
Sure. Well, a lot of that credit has to go to, I have an older brother. So I think like many younger siblings that try to emulate or be like their older sibling was kind of how it started. I can just remember my brother writing a lot of, I guess, raps at that time. And I guess to hang out with him and his friends, it was something I had to kind of attach myself to. So I would just listen and then just kind of start writing along with them. And one thing kind of led to another. And as I just kind of got older into school, they would have projects about writing poetry. So that was something that kind of came a little natural to me because I was used to, you know, rhyming words together with my brother anyway. And then I think poetry kind of, the way that I do poetry, you know, the rhyme style is kind of similar to that. So that's really how it started, and it just evolved. And I would write some for, you know, my classes in high school. And then as I got into college, doing open mics and just kept going. And here we are now.
Okay, so you are a student of the open mic, as many of us ventured into poetry through that means. When you talk about open mics, now you mentioned that you're from Virginia. Were there poetry open mics that you attended in the DMV, particularly? Any significant series that we might know about?
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, you know, the legendary places like Busboys and Poets that, you know, all of their locations, the DC ones. There's one in Arlington, the Shirlington area, which
Yes, yes.
is right down the street essentially from where I live. I think when I was growing up in Hampton, I didn't really ever get into the open mics. I think maybe because I was younger, I just didn't know much about them.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I went to undergrad was when I really had a chance to really see how the open mics worked, and then I got more familiar with them, and then I started seeing like the Bus Boys, and you know, it's really a great place to be, you know, as I'm sure you've been there, and just seeing a lot of poets. And you know, that's one of the inspirations that I have too, just from watching other people get up there and just share their words and just have their perspectives.
Okay, well, you talk about inspiration. Are there particular poets that inspired you, whether they be poets or writers? Because we realize that not every person or everything that inspires a poet has to be another poet. So were there inspirations or poets or writers that inspired you?
That's interesting. You said that it doesn't always have to be, you know, writers or poets, because I think that my inspiration can be a wide variety of things. You know, I look at poetry as an art, and, you know, sometimes it can be looking at a painting or something may inspire me to try to come up with something to say. A lot of times too, I think sometimes just different, maybe hip hop artists may have been inspirations. And then other poets that I hear about or read too, yourself, some other people that I've gotten to know. I think you know Harum LaRue, who's been very helpful with me in terms of growing my own brand in poetry, and some other people that I just have connected with networking. So there's just so many names. I don't want to leave people out, and they be
No,
like,
I understand. I do understand. Yes. Well, certainly Hiram LaRue has inspired many, many a poet with his very unique approach to writing. I love to hear his, and then there are poets like Diane Wilburn Parks, who is just has such word mastery and the beauty of her works. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her or not, but
yeah.
when you think about the significance of poetry, what is the important thing? Why is poetry important?
I think it's important because it just gives a unique perspective to any area of life. And I think that's one of the things I try to pride myself off of, is because I think, you know, hearing things one way all the time just kind of gives you a little tunnel vision on what you're looking at. And I think when you can have somebody be creative and kind of pull at your heartstrings on different issues and say it in a maybe more dramatic way, or bring it more to light than you would normally think about or hear, I think it can be really powerful. And then also just uniting people. I think, you know, poetry is such a universal type of language or type of art that it doesn't matter where you're from, you know, people all over trying to get into it. And I think too, that's something that's been inspiring for me, just as I've networked with people all across, you know, America and just the globe in general, just hearing their different stories and hearing what they've been through and how they, you know, do their own poetry is inspiring for me, or just makes me want to continue to branch out there and share my words with the world and other people, because I think everybody has a unique story to tell, and sometimes it just takes a creative way to get your point across.
Absolutely. And poetry certainly is a good barometer to gauge any particular society, any particular culture, or even civilization. What eons from now, if if this planet still exists, people will look back at the poetry that we're writing today to see what was happening in the world. So you're right. Poetry, I agree, has a very significant role in any culture. Now, one of the things that makes you unique is that you are about crafting videos of your poetry. Talk to us about that. What is the goal in making poems into videos?
It was something that just kind of came on me one day. I guess God's grace or blessing or however we want to describe it. But I was doing a lot of the open mics, and I had my first book, Poetically Correct Volume 1, and I was just thinking that the way that the world is going now, a lot of people are more visual and they just want to see things. And with movies and YouTube and little clips and reels and all of these things coming out, I was trying to figure out a way that I could get my words across without it just being my face behind a mic necessarily. So I think a lot of my poems, I kind of, some of my poems are concept poems where they may be about like death or about a breakup or about falling in love. And I was just thinking that if I could somehow put this into like a video format, it could just reach a whole another brand of people. And that if they didn't necessarily just want to hear my words, then maybe they could attach to the video that was portrayed with it. And so from that, I've done, videos about social injustices or racism, or, also about hunger, some just about self-growth, some about just different depression, mental health, different issues that any individual would go through in life. So I think that's just another way that I just want to try to, touch other people. Some people don't really like looking at things, so then maybe they can hear my voice. People who kind of get bored with just hearing my voice and they're like, oh, here's AaronR again behind the mic. They can actually see other people acting things out and see a video and, just kind of whatever way people want to hear poetry or see it. I just want to make sure that I can, make sure I can produce something that goes with whatever audience I have.
Well, I do agree that your videos are quite engaging. Do you have a YouTube channel, a website? What's your social media information?
Yes. So, yeah, my social media handle or on Twitter or Instagram is at AaronR the Poet. And that's AARON, the letter R, and then the poet, THEPOET. My YouTube is youtube.com/AaronR the Poet. And my website is AaronRpoems.com. So you can check out, my poetry, my poem videos. I also host these poetically correct contests where I invite a lot of poets to come together and share their poetry. And that's another thing that I'm doing to just try to expand the poetry brand. And also, I'm gonna have to send you too, Sistah Joy, some poetically correct t-shirts. You have one on now, so I have to make sure you and the company get one of those for having me on the show for sure.
Thank you for that. What is the best advice that let's do both, that you feel that you can offer to poets, but also the best advice that you've ever gotten from concerning poetry?
I think the best advice that I've kind of gotten is to just, maybe I can pair these together. I think falling in love with the art, falling in love with the craft is the most important thing. If you do what was true to yourself, everything else will kind of fall in place. And I think that's the best advice that I've gotten and that I could give other people, because I know sometimes we get, or just me as a poet, I can get consumed with like, who's looking at this, or who's going to like this, or did I say this right, or did I say that right? And you can kind of lose yourself in this shuffle of just trying to perform to other people or an audience. And I think it's important to just stay true to you, fall in love with the process, with the writing process, with performing, whatever it is that you do, fall in love with that and just do that the best way you can, and everything else will fall in place. Just don't get consumed with if you won an award or if you're making money or if you're doing this show or not. Just stick to the script, kind of fall in love with doing what you're doing and just focus on that.
Well, speaking of falling in love with poetry, which is something that most of us poets who are at this point where we are truly crafting our poetry to hopefully engage as many others with the messages that we want to share. What is it that you feel has been your greatest challenge to overcome as a poet?
Hmm. I think people taking me seriously. I think that's been a big challenge. I don't know too. Maybe some of that could just be being a little younger, maybe being a minority. I think also doing some things, being innovative and trying new things, I think comes with challenges of people being a little skeptical. So, I think even doing some of my poetry videos, that's been, some people not really thinking that it's for real or no, this isn't really gonna go anywhere, that type of thing. So I think that's been a challenge in trying to promote myself or get myself out there or to let people know that I'm serious about it. I'm not just, here for 1 week to write a poem and disappear, but I want to have an impact and an influence and that's what I'm here to do.
Okay, okay. So I know you mentioned earlier about your engagement with, as a matter of fact, it was included in as I was doing research for your bio, your work with Poetry X Hunger. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about Poetry X Hunger? That's a significant venture that I really want to make sure our viewers learn about.
Yeah, and that's an initiative founded by Hiram LaRue, and it's pretty much just a way to use poetry to promote stopping hunger, and also different initiatives that they have around hunger and making sure that people are more aware about some of the strains that we're dealing with right in the United States or in our own backyard for some people or in some states. And there's a lot of different poets internationally that have written poems about hunger or starving or famine. And this is just a way to group a lot of people together. We've also been able to start an anthology about that too. That's on the poetryxhunger.com website. So that's also something that people can get engaged in if you're really passionate about hunger and trying to put a stop to that.
Right. And I do want to give you kudos on winning that first 2018 World Food Day poetry competition, which is through the United Nations. So that was a global audience that you were introduced to. Tell us about that. What was that like?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was definitely an honor. It was a shock as well to just be able to perform in front of that many people about something so delicate and sensitive as hunger. And I definitely learned a lot from the experience. I was educated about the situation. And that's probably what led me to joining with Hiram and trying to make sure that I can continue to use my words to touch people and let people know that this is a serious situation out here that hopefully we can bring an end to one day.
Right, right. And now the causes that you address, social injustice and poverty, homelessness and mental illness, these are very significant arenas. Are there organizations, other organizations? I know Poetry X Hunger for addressing the issue of hunger, but are there other organizations that you're affiliated with to help pursue the cause of awareness and adjusting, hopefully, society's response or lack thereof?
Right. Not necessarily, or not now. The only other one is Capital Area Food Bank. I work with them to do a poet in residency, but I do want to branch out to other organizations and yes, do more about, the social injustices and just about the mental health, the depression, suicides, everything that people are going through divorce, breakups, especially during this pandemic where it's been a lot more focus on mental health. So
Absolutely.
I want to branch out too.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things that I always try to encourage poets who are successful with their gift to consider mentoring younger poets who
Yeah.
are interested in learning about this craft. because so often they understand it only to be about getting in front of a mic. But why don't we see what your poetry encourages by hearing some of your poetry? How about that?
All right, sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, Sojourn with Words viewers, it is my privilege and honor to present and bring to the mic AaronR. Thank you so much. Aaron, take it away.
All right. This first poem that I'm going to do for you all is called This Life I Lead. I'm only human and my emotions change. People's perceptions of me and mine haven't always been the same. I've never quite been a type to automatically conform to the norm. Because to me, that's not how creativity is born. And I was informed to be like the norm. And out of that shell, my reality was born. That I have words to give. And I do believe that you too have just as good as a gift as me. And two is better than one. So imagine what we could be collectively. The more, the better, respectively. Large groups could change this nation's trajectory. Some people do this for show. This isn't part of that act. You'll be remembered for how you treat others, not for your alternative facts. Thank you.
Okay. And the name of that again was?
This Life I Lead. The next poem I'm going to share is the one that I did win the World Food Day Poetry Contest, called Hunger Pains. In a world that's concerned with the economy and marketing numbers, how do we have people out here starving and dealing with hunger? We've come too far as nations to be facing this type of situation. So we have a plan, in 2030 as our destination. And I'm not talking about decreasing, I'm talking about elimination, so we don't have anybody starving in any nations. Speaking of nations, it's kind of strange to me that in all of this land of plenty opportunity, there's people walking down the street without food to eat. We spend millions of dollars on entertainment, but that's another topic. There's people out here starving, and we need to do something to stop it. We spend money on wars, but we need to be at war with not feeding the poor. This is a situation we can no longer ignore. I mean, there's families with children walking around with their stomachs growling and sore. We owe it to each other to do so much more, so let's depend on each other and help one another. In order to stop world hunger, the world's going to need one another. So my challenge to you and my challenge to me, do something small or large or independently, because together, everyone achieves more. If we unite as a team, world hunger will be no more. We can achieve this dream. That sounds like a plan that's worth it to me. So let's all embark on this journey and do little by little, day by day, until 2030, and stop the hunger pains that stain our society. Thank you. And that was Hunger Pains.
All right.
And the last one that I wanted to share with you today is called Transitions. Transitions stop ambitions. Who really cares and who's really there when my loved ones are missing? When you cry yourself to sleep, soaking up the sheets, and only your pillows are listen. No hesitation, unknown about their destination. Darkest nights and the car lights are still illuminating. Dark traffic, music blasting. But it's my darkest day and loneliest night, but somebody else's day and night is going just fantastic. When I'm sad, doesn't anybody care? A bright day when everything's going right and everybody's there. They say life is hard, but it's fair. But what's fair about the person who never walked and always relied on a wheelchair? Speak life in deaf in the tongue, but the mind, it wonders why it's there. Life's a chair with wheels, going through the bumps, bruises, and all the thrills. Signs of the times. Why do people who have good lives have committed crimes? Some people with good hearts, they don't have a good life. Now that's the part my mind can't fathom or comprehend about life. Looking beyond the cars into the stars, what causes them to align and shine? Random thoughts that come to my mind that have a tight grip that fit, that cause shift just like Invisalign. Those who take their blessings for granted, I'll never understand it. Success isn't based on what your peers say, it's based on God's plan. Can you stand the rain, the anger? People still out despite all of my pain. They say no 2 days are, but they all seem the same. Life comes fast, especially when you're in the fast lane. Thoughts aren't the same, mine are germane. No reservations, no reparations. Rainy days and these car lights are still illuminating while I'm ruminating on how populations are affected by sanitation, vaccinations, life lacerations, always ramifications, damnations, stagnations, damnations, plantations, damnations, plans hated, damnations, resignations, problems that man's hands created affected populations. You don't act like you care, but how could you when you were never there? The view I have here makes things perfectly clear. While I'm sad, shedding tears, you're glad hitting the gas to disappear. God bless me with a spirit of love and not a spirit of fear. Dear world, your transitions are so cold, but my coat is near. Although stains remain, it's easier to make them than it is to make them change, maintain, sustain, doing things over and over again for consistency, not because you're insane. Transitions, things change. By now, you know the name. AaronR the poet, now you know it, so don't let it out of your brain. The world never stops, so don't you ever stop doing your thing. Transitions.
Okay, and that is AaronR. Well, Aaron, thank you so very much for being with us today. You have given us a lot to listen to, and for those that will be visiting your website, they'll have a lot to view because of your videos. So congratulations on all that you've already accomplished, from World Food Hunger contest with the United Nations to what you're continuing to do on your videos, a unique approach to poetry. Thank you very much for being with us here on Sojourn with Words.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Well, and don't forget well, you give the website again, please.
Oh yeah, AaronRpoems.com. That's AARON, the letter R, POEMS.com. AaronRpoems.com. And you can also follow me at AaronR the Poet. My videos are at youtube.com/AaronR the Poet.
Okay. Well, thank you so much and all the best. Stay safe. And everybody that's viewing Sojourn with Words, remember, pick up a pen, see what happens when you craft your own words. Be blessed.